was also known as the birthplace of prefrontal lobotomies. So in 1939, here we go again with the lobotomies.
We talked about this. We have a whole episode on it.
Yeah, we do.
When did they stop doing those?
Yesterday. I don't know.
Actually, you're not too far off.
No, I swear
Honestly,
that I knew somebody in the 80s who had a lobotomy.
It went on for a while. Yeah.
Healthcare horrors. Murder.
Nutella and anything is good.
Fair.
I could just eat spoonfuls.
With a spoon.
I've never, ever had Nutella.
Never.
Never.
Do you like hazelnuts?
I do, but I'm just not a sweets person in general, so I don't have like a lot of opportunity to sample that type of stuff.
Do you like
Nutella
hazelnut
and
coffee?
pretzels.
I don't drink coffee.
You don't drink coffee?
No.
I don't drink coffee either. I usually, if I do drink a coffee drink, it's a blended.
Don't get me wrong. I have
frou-frou.
caffeine in my day, but I don't drink coffee anymore because I worked at a coffee shop for the longest time when I was working 2.5 jobs and going to school full time. And I was working there at 4 a.m. Monday through Friday. And I drank too much coffee, and now it's just I can't do it. Did it to
never too
survive?
much coffee.
Oh, there was. I'll bring us in. I'll start us off.
All right.
Okay.
Start us off for what? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Like, what are we here for?
What are we doing?
So we're kind of wild. It takes us a while to, figure out what we're doing here.
Get in the zone.
Me too.
AutoZone. I'm sorry.
Wow.
AutoZone. Okay. All right. Welcome to another episode of Healthcare Horrors. My name is Alicia Carosella. I'm your veteran training and development specialist.
And I am Ashley. I'm a brand specialist.
I'm doling on the knobs.
Got our knob guy.
And we've got another guest.
We do. Who do we have?
I'm Erica Bradford, and I'm a recruiter here.
Woohoo!
Amazing.
Have you ever recorded a podcast before?
Do you
I've listened to a lot of
feel like
podcasts.
the real deal?
I feel really important right now.
Good.
What podcasts do you like to listen to?
Now's when you're going to make fun of me, but I really like presidential. So it's a girl from in Washington who went to the Library of Congress and looked through all kinds of
that's cool.
old documents. And instead of talking about the actual presidents, like their presidency, she talks about just them as a person and what they went through during their time. And I don't know, it's interesting.
Wow.
We
Yeah.
like history.
Yeah, no,
That's really cool.
That's cool.
We wouldn't make fun of you for that. That sounds interesting.
Humanizes the president, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool because you just find out things that you never would have thought about, and you can understand I don't
Absolutely.
hate that person
Definitely.
as much.
Things that are more relatable than just vote for me because
Yeah.
I think global warming is real. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. We're
right,
here to
okay,
talk
okay.
about some spooky stuff.
Yeah. Should we talk about who we had on last time?
Yes.
Okay. Last time we had on Joel Kozacek.
It's Joel.
And what
Kozacek.
we talked about Rolling Hills Asylum.
Yeah.
And how Joel loves morgues.
And he would sleep in the one there and
Yeah.
meet Ron. Ron?
Roy.
Meet Roy.
Roy was a ghost, or is a ghost at Rolling Hills. And Joel said he would visit and sleep in the morgue.
Yep.
A big ghost, because Roy, when he
He's-
was alive, had gigantism.
Gigantism. Yep.
Gigantism.
So he's over 7 feet tall.
Now I'm saying words wrong.
I mean, someone has to fill that
Right,
void, right?
right.
So that's what we talked about last time. And this time we're going to talk about.
This time we are talking about the Danvers State Hospital, and we're wrapping up our series of spooky places because this is the Saturday before Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy almost Halloween, everyone.
Yep. After this, we're back to talking about
Murders.
healthcare professionals who really just suck.
Also spooky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. All right, let's get into it.
yes, I'm ready to hear what you've got about the ties to Salem.
Yes. So when I was trying to figure out what places we should talk about, one of the main things that stood out to me about Danvers State Hospital was that Arkham Asylum in Batman was influenced off of this facility. So kind of thought that was cool.
I know, I read that. I was like, oh,
Kind of a little fun fact.
like me some Batman.
Also, Danvers, Massachusetts is where the Salem village actually was. So all of the accused and everyone involved in the Salem witch trials, they actually lived in what is known as Danvers, Massachusetts today. But the witch trials did take place, like the killings did take place in Salem, Massachusetts. So, little fun fact. So the site for Danvers State Hospital was also known as Hawthorne Hill, Porter Hill, or Dodge Hill. And when I was reading that, I was like, those names sound familiar. So if you're not familiar with the Salem witch trials, Hawthorne, Porter, and Dodge were names of families that were involved in the Salem witch trials. So there's John Hawthorne, who was the son of William Hawthorne, and John Hawthorne was the judge that oversaw the trials. There's John Porter, who was the Porter family was a wealthy and influential family. They had a rivalry with the Putnam family, who was also a wealthy family. And the Putnam family was one of the first families affected by the trials, or victims, however you want to look at it. And then there's John Dodge, who was a wealthy captain who married Sarah Proctor. And Sarah Proctor was accused of being a witch. She confessed that she was a witch. She just had to pay a fine, and then she was released.
Oh, yeah, because I just learned, I didn't know this, but if you confessed that you were a witch, then they didn't kill you.
And then what, you just pay your money and you go about your merry day?
Yeah. But if you did confess to being a witch, you're also like an outcast, so you're not going to have your family.
But you're not dead.
Yeah,
But you're not dead.
alive. Yeah.
Wouldn't they do like random things to make you, or like to prove that you were a witch, but they would end up dying anyways? Like
the drowning test,
yeah,
right?
like the drowning, like they throw you in the water and be like, if prove you're not a witch, and then they would die anyway or whatever.
They did do stuff like that.
Yeah.
They did a little of that, but I think for the most part, that wasn't done in the U.S. It was done more in England and stuff.
Okay.
Interesting.
So yeah, if you didn't confess to being a witch, you either died in prison or you were hung, or there was one man who was squashed to death by stones.
Jeez.
That would be the worst way, I think.
Yeah, very slow death. So yeah, just right from the get-go, I feel like there's some bad juju on the land.
Although it was covered with oak trees, pine trees, and an apple grove.
Yeah, it sounded like it was a very pretty area, at least.
You would know. You've been there. Is it pretty?
Oh,
Well, you guys haven't been to Danvers, but you've been to Salem.
Yeah, I didn't go to Danvers, but that part of the U.S. is gorgeous. It's
Especially
absolutely
at this
gorgeous.
time of year.
Yes, all the fall trees right on the ocean. Okay, let's get into the actual asylum itself in the building. So Nathaniel J. Bradley, I'm just going to run through some names really quick. Nathaniel J. Bradley was the architect who was supervising the build. There was Dr. Calvin S. May, who was a doctor with increased emphasis on mental health, and he was one of the first superintendents at the facility. There was Dr. Thomas Kirkbride and Dorothea Dix. Dorothea was very involved in moral treatment of patients and humanistic approaches, and these two influenced the guidelines for the patient care and the facility care. In the late 1800s, there were a lot of mental hospitals in Boston, Massachusetts. So Danvers and Salem isn't far from Boston. And there's just a whole bunch of mental hospitals that were very overcrowded. So they decided to build another one to help with the overcrowding. And of course, when they were getting started, everything was like, it seemed like they had their shit together, basically. Like, the plans for this place were Very well thought out, respectable. They just had very good intentions.
Yep. They had space for everybody, patients, attendants, administration, all of that good stuff.
Even looked like they had separate place for nurse housing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, so Dr. Thomas Kirkbride had a nationally recognized plan for an institution like this. I don't know if we want to read, but there was like 8 things. Like, it has to be in a certain location that's easy to get to. There has to be a lot of nature or like just a pretty area. Just things like that. It had to be, the building had to be constructed a certain way and out of certain materials.
Yep. Stone and brick.
Do you want to read through them all?
Yeah,
go
I can
for
read
it.
them. Okay, so we've got number 1, has to be built in the country, but accessible at all seasons. So it can't be somewhere that can be secluded off, like in the wintertime or something. Number 2 would be set on grounds of at least 100 acres, and I believe they had 500 for Danvers.
I don't know. They definitely had a lot of land.
I think that's right.
And then number 3 was house a maximum of 250 patients. Number 4, be built of stone or brick with slate or metal roof and otherwise made as fireproof as possible. Number 5, be composed of 8 wards separated according to sex and built according to other specifications as to size, location, and material of accommodations. 6, be organized with wings flanking a central administration building. 7, house the most excited patients in the end or outermost wings. And lastly, 8, provide an abundance of pure, fresh air.
Yes.
So, I mean, overall, especially for the times, I feel like this is a really good, well thought out plan for an institution.
Yep. Good plan, and just the whole backing of the doctors and everything, just looking out for the patient care.
Yep.
So construction for the Danvers State Hospital began on May 1st, 1874. They had a lot of pride in their plan for this institution. The facility had their own farming and buildings for staff to live in, and other sufficient features. So again, the facility was pretty self-sufficient. Wards were built for females and males, like you said. They kept them separated. And there were also wards built to cater different types of patients, which is something we haven't seen. Like usually everyone's just thrown together, or it's just all the females, all the males, and that's all the separation they did.
Yeah, and I would say Dr. Kirkbride is well before his time, because his thinking and doing this and laying this out this way is to be more curative in his approach rather than custodial. And most of the places that we see are generally just used for housing all the people that they don't know what to do with in the population.
Yeah. Very, very different from the Genesee Poorhouse or Rolling Hills Asylum. So May 1st, 1878 is when the facility starts accepting their first patients.
There's a lot of patients in the areas, though, that I noticed. And like with the other, in the Boston area, they're at the capacities of like 1,000, 1,200. I mean, it just seems like a lot of people in these facilities for how many facilities there are, which is there's like 4 or 5 in the Boston area.
What is going on? But
I was
also
thinking about that when I was thinking about just recently how we've been closing down facilities for people with mental health, and they're building a ton up.
Yeah. But also, like, in this time, everyone who was an outcast was like sent to these facilities. It was poor people, it was drunks, it was just unwanted, unruly people.
Women and unwed mothers
And children. So this facility, they did accept all of those people. They accepted the mentally ill. They would take poor people or rejects. I did make
what
a
is
note.
defined as a reject? I must know.
Yeah, I don't know. Just society's rejects. It's sad. So they had a lot of success at first. They had a great reputation. They took care of their people. They employed 125 doctors, nurses, staff. And then they treated over 9,000 people. So there wasn't 9,000 people
Wow.
there at once, but
Right.
there was that many
Throughout
people
the
being
time.
treated. Yeah, like over 20 years or something.
Which is really great because they are being treated, I would hope, for the most part, at least in the beginning.
Yes.
They had some
guess is
very
there's a body
interesting
shoot.
treatments, though.
Yeah. We're going to get into the weird stuff. In 1879, they did hire the first female doctor. I don't know if that was in the U.S. or the world, but I just thought that was kind of cool. So she was there to help treat the mental patients.
Like the first female doctor ever, not just at the facility.
I think ever, or at least in the U.S. But
Wow.
yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. They were just doing good things and making waves. They took care of the poor.
Starts out good.
Yeah, they introduced occupational therapy and social services. Like they provided education, and they also trained nurses and attendants at that facility as well.
Like all good stories, it started out
Yeah.
nice.
No, Waverly started out good too.
Once upon a time.
And they had their own nursing school even though, which I thought was really great.
Yeah. So
And then
they but they started taking on more patients than they should have. So the hospital administration actually tried to get more funding from the state, and the state kept refusing. So regardless, of course, the conditions got worse for their patients. Patients were living in their own waste. Some
Jeez.
didn't have clothes, the usual terrible things that you read about.
We talk about ratios here all the time, right? With our nurses.
yep, we do.
So this also led to shock therapy, which was one of the terrible things that they started doing there.
Which, fun fact, Jasmine Trubay informed us they still use shock therapy as a treatment to this day.
Like electric shock therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some facilities do still use it.
Yeah, she said that it was part of her nursing school training.
Interesting. Did you see that this facility used insulin coma therapy?
No.
Yes. So this was part of their shock therapy that they would give large doses of insulin to put patients in an insulin coma. They had a whole separate wing for it, and the patients had to be observed 24/7. They would take them outside for a certain amount of time. They would seize when they were coming out of these comas, and it was used to treat schizophrenia.
Oh my gosh.
What is the thought process behind that?
Well, they were saying, and it was a
but I'm
lot
just, like,
of
trying to
medical
With my
terminology.
own background in psychology, I'm trying to think like what would the thought process be to that? Like,
So what happened was this doctor was in his training. He just got out of like psychology training in, I think it was Vienna. It was somewhere in Europe, okay? And so they accidentally put a patient in an insulin coma, and then they noticed that symptoms got better. And
so it was like one person.
Right. So
And
then he drew the conclusion that there were things happening, I think, with like the nerve block and all this other stuff. But so then they just extrapolated it.
Correlation and causation
Right.
are not the same.
So some people would say that the insulin coma therapy had like an 80% success rate. And then other people were saying it was like 50-50, which I feel like probably anything you could say is 50-50, right?
Yeah.
Well, and again, at this point in time, there's just a lot of experimenting going on. So, yeah, I didn't even hear about that. And I think one of the things that was scary about the shock therapy they were doing is they would put patients in straitjackets, do the shock therapy, put them in an isolated room, and then forget about them. So you're in a straitjacket in a room by yourself for who knows how long.
After your brain's just been shocked.
Yeah. And of course they probably do a lot of these things because the staff is outnumbered, and it makes the patients maybe a little more manageable. If they're in a coma, it's like, well,
No
I'm just
trouble.
gonna go lay you in this bed and worry about the next patient, I guess.
Except
until
they
you wake
needed a
up.
lot of staff because it's so dicey, right, when you're coming out of that coma. So I think it probably wasn't very conducive to what they needed to have happen just because of the number of staff they needed to observe these people.
Well, maybe in that regard, but my guess is they were giving them plenty of lithium and keeping them down.
Something. They also, this was also known as the birthplace of prefrontal lobotomies. So in 1939, here we go again with the lobotomies.
We talked about this. We have a whole episode on it.
Yeah, we do.
When did they stop doing those?
Yesterday. I don't know. Actually,
you're not too far off.
No, I swear
Honestly,
that I knew somebody in the 80s who
Yeah,
had a lobotomy.
It went on for a while. Yeah.
I think
Well-
that the 80s sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. That dates me a little bit.
We
Sorry,
talk
young
about
folks.
it. We talk
the
about it.
last recorded is with Dr. Walter Friedman, Friedman in 1967.
Okay, almost
Okay.
in the 80s.
Close.
Wow. I mean, it's probably happened. Like when it was poo-pooed, other people were like, oh, here's my chance to make money.
You know who
and probably
banned
did it.
lobotomies before us?
Everybody.
No, yeah, mostly, but the Soviet Union even.
Nice.
Like, aren't those the bad guys? but what's great?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So I digress.
No, you're good.
I was just gonna say, I'm reading here too that a year after, in 1950, when these were finally banned in the Soviet Union, the man who actually invented the prefrontal cortex lobotomy, Dr. Igas Moniz, he won the Nobel Prize for Medicine for inventing the lobotomy.
Wow.
Weird.
Typical timeline.
I know, and then a year later, they're like, just kidding, we shouldn't do this anymore.
So in the midst of all of these terrible treatments and everything, they were still trying to do some good. And again, at the time, they didn't really think these treatments were bad. In the 1920s, they had operated school clinics to determine if children had like mental deficiencies or not. So they would do things like that. They introduced a number of programs like that for research, etc. So
I wonder what the protocol for that is. I
don't know.
For
How
determining if a child has a mental illness. Because truthfully, I mean, some of these may be able to be diagnosed when people are younger, but until your brain is fully developed, like, can you really be diagnosing these types of things?
Right.
I don't know. Just thought.
Do you have any more weird treatments that you read about other than lobotomies?
Lobotomies, shock treatment, and then the insulin coma. And then are you going to talk about Marie Balter?
I do have some notes on her, but not a lot. She was a patient who was admitted to the facility in 1947. She was 16 or 17, and she was diagnosed with depression and schizophrenia. What kind of stuff do you have on her?
So she was misdiagnosed. They said, so she was, from what I read, she was orphaned during the Great Depression, and then her foster parents were abusing her. And so then she ends up coming here to get treatment, but she's misdiagnosed. And so they're giving her all kinds of medicine that actually is making her more anxious and depressed.
Yeah.
And she stays there for like 20 years. But then she's released and she dedicates herself to coming back and helping the people that she left behind. So she goes and becomes a doctor of psychology, I think, something of the sort, and ends up coming back. And she is their administrator and chief hospital spokeswoman in 1988, which is really interesting, I think.
It's crazy. Yeah.
She published a book, which, of course, I'm going to read about the books.
Yeah.
So she publishes a book, Nobody's Child, to talk about her experiences.
Yeah, way to turn her life around. She had a super rocky childhood. I didn't get into all of the nitty gritty. But yeah, she was a patient at Danvers from 1947 to 1968. And then she gets out and she just returns to school, working with psychiatric patients, and gets her master's degree. And returns to Danvers. It's crazy.
I love that. I love a good, like, sort of redemption. She takes this and, turns it into something good. She tries to. And I love a good first-person story of an experience like that.
For sure.
And here's a happy note. Did you know they also did art therapy there?
Yeah, they had
So
a whole
like that's
bunch
a little
of
happier.
exactly. They did have some good things that they were still trying to implement. Art therapy is one of them. I don't remember what other ones there were,
Yeah.
but I do remember seeing the art. Crazy.
So intentions were
Intentions were still
overall
there.
good.
They just got overrun with too many patients and probably took it too far with the experimentation. And it sucks because like nowadays, obviously, if you want to experiment on somebody, people have to sign up for these things
Yep.
and give their consent. And, you know, sometimes are given monetary reward for it.
Yep. I hear the
Instead-
radio ads all the time.
Yeah.
Like, come try this new drug and get paid
Yeah.
$1,000.
And then
Or,
it's
like, do
the
it
fast
the
talk.
sleep
Like it might
study.
Yeah.
kill you.
Right. And so it always pains me to think about like you're just using a very vulnerable population to which to be fair, I mean we have learned a lot in terms of science and a lot of research, but I often wonder how much does that outweigh all the harm that was done, and I don't think that it does per se.
Yeah.
I did see, it's kind of interesting. There were some patient abuse, like filings against the hospital, not
Sure.
shocking. But when the state came in to investigate, they actually commended the hospital with how they handled the
It
reporting.
was probably better
is
than
interesting.
they're probably, you know, using a comparison of like what the other facilities were doing and just saying like, wow, like, you know, it's a step above. So, you know,
Well, it was
good
even in
enough.
the 90s. Like that's pretty recent. That
I
the
still think there
things
was
were
not a
published.
lot of rules and regulations in the 90s. We didn't really, the rules and regulations and how we ethically treat people is, you know, come a long way even since then, which we have learned through talking
Yeah.
about all kinds of doctors, patients, and
I was going to say,
situations.
we've had quite a few subjects what do you mean?
Yeah.
From the 90s and early 2000s that we've talked about on this show.
which has created such a big shift and change in
Correct.
ethics, actually. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it was 1991 that Danvers State Hospital, or also known as the State Lunatic Hospital, that they started to close their doors due to the poor conditions and budget cuts. So yeah, it was 1992, I think, that these stories came out, or the claims came out about abuse. And I think for the most part, it was just the staff maybe restraining patients too much and just being a little too rough with them. But yes, they were definitely being abusive, you know, how they would handle some of their patients. So I didn't like write down all of the details from them, but from those stories.
Could you imagine the stress going both ways though? Like
yeah.
with the ratios being that off, like you've already got people who need treatment that aren't okay. And then you've got, you know, caretakers, I'm doing air quotes, caretakers going around like freaking out, you know? And so they're probably forcibly trying to just get shit done.
Yeah.
Just a lot of room in all
Yeah.
these situations for human error and situational
Yeah.
Absolutely.
things.
Your capacity for stress is you will hit your limit at some point, right?
Yeah.
And then they're with each other constantly and unsafe ratios for everybody.
So June 24th, 1992 is when the last employees and patients were transferred out of the facility. And then from 1992 to 1996, this place was pretty much just abandoned. Finally, in 2005 to 2008, a lot kind of happens. Part of the facility gets bought and turned into apartments and condos, while other parts of the
You
facility...
moving in, Dolan?
Yeah.
Well, and then they
No.
even resell it. So they like make these apartments condos, then they sell it off to somebody else in Boston. I'm like, who wants to live here?
Yeah, and some parts of the facility were demolished. So I think it's just like the main center part, because if you look at a photo of it, it's just kind of like a really long building that's kind of at a slight angle.
Except
The cemetery.
4 of them, 4 of the apartment complex buildings and 4 of the construction trailers burned down in 2007.
There you go.
There you go. What you think?
There you
Ghosts
go.
did it?
No. I think people are fed up and they were like, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Probably somebody left their stove on.
They buried patients on properties. There's like
Wow.
this giant cemetery with over 600 people buried, and not all of them are even identified.
Yeah, there's probably more than that.
I would say we've learned.
Yeah, do you have any numbers on how many people even died there? Because again, they don't really
I just saw
record these.
677 people buried, and 542 of them are identified. But not all of them are identified with the actual grave number. So it's like they know they're dead in there, but they don't know who's in what place. And many of them, you know, family, no one's come to claim
And
them.
that's over all of the years, or just in the 90s, or when it got
who's
bad?
buried
I
on
have
the
a
property.
solid
Okay.
number of 770 patients died.
Okay.
770.
So it's probably over 1,000.
Yeah, I would say, you know, just like
Probably.
when you tell your doctor how many drinks you have each week, you know, your doctor's got to round up. You got to round up.
Round it up a little bit. Meanwhile, there is obviously a lot of ghostly activity, the usual stuff, apparitions, voices, a lot of negative energy. This place was not turned into a tourist attraction, though, since it's...
For once.
Yeah, for once, since it's just kind of apartments and people are living there. So you can't really just go ghost hunting there.
Do we have any idea what it costs to live there?
You know who does know? Google.
Google.
I'm just interested. Like, is this some
Yeah.
sort of luxury condo situation, or is it?
I wonder how big the rooms are and stuff, but, you know, if everything was
They're
renovated.
called the Bradley Danvers, by
Okay.
the way.
So
That makes
Never
sense.
To the
mind.
website.
yeah. I was going to say something really dumb, but
What? Say it
I was
now.
like, well, that makes sense because
This-
it was Danvers. And then I was like, oh, that's the name of the town. So
Well, Nathaniel J. Bradley was the guy the architect,
Yeah.
who oversaw.
okay.
So they are quite pricey. An 851 square foot, one bed, one bath costs $2,400 a month,
Nice.
starting going rate. Let's see here.
That is
we got
wonder
the
if
Double
that's-
my house
we
here in
got
Omaha.
let's see. Most of these are one bedroom, one bath, but the bigger ones, the 1,200 square foot one, starts at $2,600 a month.
Wow.
But you know, they have some great amenities, and this pool looks really nice.
And then you can just go walk by the cemetery. If
It's
you want
honestly
to.
beautiful. Like this property is
goodness.
beautiful.
Wow.
So that's the thing. The building,
gorgeous.
Ooh, the inside is really pretty.
Yeah, I'll find some more. And the pictures of the outside of the building are also gorgeous. But you know,
So like the beginning, well planned out.
yeah. And they've got a nice gym. They've got a whole movie theater and an arcade and a basketball court.
You're welcome for your rental pitch.
Oh my,
Kick us the referral
Look,
fee,
it
please.
is beautiful.
Oh wow. See, I would probably
I
live
would live
there
there.
because I'm a sucker. Haunt me. I'm a sucker for architecture and
pretty.
Basketball courts.
So Nathaniel J. Bradley, I don't know if he coined this term, but he said that the architecture would be considered domestic Gothic architecture. And I love it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful building.
Oh yeah, domestic Gothic. And I was like,
Seems
I
like
like
they
that.
kept, on the outside anyway, they kind of kept the historic
Yes.
look to the building versus blowing it. You know,
Thank
sometimes
goodness.
they just knock things down and it's some big, huge skyscraper looking thing.
Ugh.
I'm under the frequently asked questions section, and I was wondering if there would be anything. No, there's nothing.
There's no hauntings.
no mention, just your typical.
So where is
apartment
everybody
stuff.
putting their stories? Are there? I'm sure we're gonna get
I
into
don't
these,
know.
right?
Well, there's nothing specific
There's
really
nothing.
listed, and even on all the pages I've looked on about Danvers, there's not a lot of specifics. Just really about the history of the hospital, and that's kind of it.
So no like spooky hauntings.
I mean, there are reports of it, but it's a lot of the usual stuff. I don't have anything specific.
Okay.
And I would imagine that's because it's now not a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, it's a lot of residences.
But I would love
Well,
to.
and you wonder if the people who built the apartment complex have some sort of vested interest in maybe keeping.
things a little hush hush.
Okay, but let's look at the apartment ratings. for Bradley Danvers.
Yeah,
See,
let's,
you know.
yeah, let's.
Do some digging.
Yeah, we'll just see if there's anything at all.
No one
I feel like
says
I have to go to
ghost.
Reddit. Hold on.
They have a mice problem. Mice everywhere.
Okay. Haunted mice.
We did talk about rat ghosts last episode.
Yeah.
And plant ghosts.
I heard a report of someone sleeping there, or at least trying to sleep, and like the bed sheet got pulled off of them. That's really the only spooky story that I heard. But you're right, since it's mostly residences, it's
Yeah, there's
probably
nothing
kept
to
hush hush.
nothing to report. Let's
Probably-
see what Dolan finds on Reddit.
Probably one of those things where you'd have to go there and talk to the locals to get the stories.
Think they'll send us there
Let's do it.
on assignment.
well, and that's really funny because we've been talking about every time we talk about this stuff, we're like, okay, where are we gonna go?
If I was in Dolan's shoes, I would just look for haunted attractions for every meet and greet and like base a meet and greet around a haunted
Ashley
place.
would be
Oh,
really
yeah.
happy, but now I'm gonna have to start tagging along.
We need a trainer to come with. I mean,
I
I'm
know.
sure you could
I
answer
like-
some good questions.
I feel like I really could. You want to
recruiters
know what
and
it's like to
nurses might
join
have.
Atlas? Let me tell you all about it.
So there is somebody who posted on Reddit. It says, I live here now. I knew about the history long before moving in. Everyone who lives here knows about the history. They embrace it and respect it. The place has this quiet, pressure-like atmosphere. Really easy to get spooked. There's a small cemetery off a trail on a road that encircles the whole building, and it's the only cemetery I've ever been in and have felt uncomfortable, meaning it's fucking creepy.
Okay.
Aren't we like a G-rated podcast?
I don't know. We
Not
have
anymore.
Nah.
But I'm glad that you looked that up because that's like a true, hopefully
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
I
review.
didn't picture the cemetery encircling.
Yeah.
That's really creepy.
Or maybe it was just the sidewalk or a road encircling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Erica, do you have any stories?
Do you have any spooky
Any
encounters?
Ghost sightings? Anything?
Have you ever gone anywhere haunted?
My kids are obsessed with trying to get like Bloody Mary to come out. Do you remember that from when
man.
you were a kid?
Yeah.
You know what? I
I'm
feel
like, how is this still real?
I saw a very scary movie about that recently. I think it was just called Bloody Mary. It was like on Hulu or something. It was quite terrifying.
My
I'm
daughter
not
just
doing
got a
that.
book, Ghostology,
Oh, okay.
and I made the, I don't know, mistake
Mm-hmm.
of calling it a nonfiction book because it was talking about the study of finding
like,
ghosts,
Ghosts
right?
are real?
No, she's fine, but my son won't sleep alone.
Aw.
And he keeps telling her she needs to burn the book. Like, cut the book,
Oh
throw
my
it away.
God.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he thinks that there's going to be hauntings.
No, we're just learning about ghosts.
Like, it's okay. Just the study is real. I don't know if the ghosts are real.
Mm-hmm.
Chill out, you're 6.
Could you guys live in a place like
No
this?
way.
You wouldn't do it?
No.
I'm
It's
with
really
you.
pretty.
It is really pretty. Like,
I'm a
would
sucker
have-
for aesthetic.
yeah, I would have to check it out. Obviously, if you don't feel comfortable, I'm out.
Yeah, like when you
But-
go there, like if you feel bad when you go there, like yeah, probably not.
But
I've
haven't
got
you ever
pretty-
been somewhere where like it's, I don't know. I always feel like
Yeah.
the temperature change thing is what like freaks me out when I start thinking something,
But there are a
something's
lot of
off.
explainable. You can explain away the temperature change quite often. But if it's only one part of a room,
Right. And it's like in
Yeah.
that moment. And I'm like, I'm done. There's a ghost. Get out of here.
Why is this corner 20 degrees colder?
yeah, I feel
than
like
the
I've
rest of
got
the
a
house?
pretty good intuition. So if I feel bad in a place, like I can kind of immediately know. I feel like Ashley's much the same. Dolan, I don't know. Do you have a sense for?
I think if I don't know
Bad
about
vibes.
it, I'm just oblivious to it.
Yeah.
As soon as I know something, then I'm like, yeah,
As soon as you think there's going to be bad vibes,
Correct.
you feel bad vibes. So you
Correct.
create it for yourself.
Yep.
Okay. What about you, Erica?
Oh my gosh, I get freaked out by all kinds of stuff. So in our car, this is my story. Okay. In our car, so unfortunately, one of our friends passed away, and we drove him around in our vehicle in the passenger seat for weeks before he was hospitalized and passed away. Right after that,
I'm glad you cleared that up because my mind went to he was dead and you were driving him around for weeks.
no.
Yeah, I know. I was like, why is he in the passenger seat of your car?
Whoa. Okay, continue.
Okay, so he passed away at the hospital, not in my car.
Okay. And then he stayed there, not got back in your car.
Did not get back into the car.
All right,
so
good.
weeks later, the passenger seat light, like the little light
It just
you
kept
push,
coming on.
to turn. It kept coming on.
Oh.
And like, that's
It's like, I'm here.
right. I'm like, I don't know.
That's sweet.
Oh.
After my brother died, there's a picture of me and him on my dresser, and like every day I would come home. I lived alone. And this is like right after he passed. My dog's in the kennel. Like, she can't get out. She's a puppy. Also, there's no way she could reach it. Every day I would come home and that picture is moved like halfway. So like 180 degrees turned every day. And this went on for like a year.
So you think your brother was just dropping in
I don't know.
to check on
maybe
you?
just be like,
Just to
hey,
let you
still
know.
here. Hey, still here. He liked to be the center of attention, so I wouldn't be surprised.
I will say after I had my daughter, I was very, very ill. And when I finally was able to walk by myself, like with help, I walked down to the edge of the hospital. And I remember like my husband was looking at me and he just had this like horrified look. But just in that moment, I was like, everything's going to be fine. Like I could just feel like, I don't know what the presence was, but I was like, oh. And I always,
thank you.
Right. Like I always think my Nana and my grandpa are looking out for me. And I always just kind of felt like they were there to say like, nope, you're going to be okay.
Oh.
I was like, see, but Dylan, how do you explain this stuff? Like I was like actively pushing my drawers in and out to make sure like it wasn't me that was causing this photo to change. Like I was doing all the things and nothing would move this
Nothing's
picture.
going to turn it like
No,
that
and it would
though.
like fully turned. Yeah.
No, that's what I was saying last episode is you can't explain this stuff. And that's why it's freaky to me.
Well, but I mean, I feel like you can explain it. Your brain can draw some pretty logical conclusions around it.
I mean, that's what we do. We always draw conclusions.
Yeah.
And so that's the scary part to me. That's why I'm like, I'm going to pretend it was this. Yeah,
you just
that makes sense.
need it to be fact based.
I'm not going to come out and claim anything because I just don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Erica, what are you doing for Halloween? Do you have plans?
I am going to take my kiddos to another family's house and we're going to have some pizza and trick or treat and roast some s'mores on a fire pit.
That sounds fun.
Sounds
I'm
amazing. Heck yeah. Figure out where Joel lives because apparently he has like a whole cemetery and everything set up. And
Oh, we'll go there. So I take my kids driving to look at decorations and stuff all the time. So I'll find it.
Yeah, I know. I was
There
going
you
to say,
go.
I was going to make Joel, I was going to call him out and be like, and your address is.
I know. I was thinking that
If you
too.
want to
So
see it,
everybody can drive by Joel's house. Very
It's
good.
Joel.
Oh, thank God for you because I'm not doing that.
What are we going to talk about next?
All right, we're moving on.
We're moving on. This is the end of our spooky season, and we're going to get back to our usual
Regular terror.
our normal
our horror.
bi-weekly scheduled broadcasting.
And Dolan will not be the announcer.
No.
But yeah, we are going to talk about a very recent case of a nurse who's not so good, not doing very good things. She's a British nurse named Lucy Letby or Letby. I'm not quite sure, but
We'll figure it out by then.
yeah. Will we? I don't know. Maybe I'll listen to
say
some
it
news.
with an accent.
Oh, be my guest, Erica.
Give
I mean,
it a
not
go.
now. I mean, we're going to have to look it up so we know which way to go.
Well, so
sure
that's what we'll be talking about next time.
Good find. Terrible
Yeah.
find.
I know.
How do you gauge these things?
So internet is going to be probably pretty sad because it involves children. So if you're not wanting to listen to that, here's your warning now.
Skip that one.
We'll probably
that
give
one.
another warning.
And we will also give you another warning.
Yes.
Yeah.
What Dylan said. Okay.
Erica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
was
Happy
fun.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween,
Eat all the
everybody.
candy.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Good
Hey, you
job.
did it, right? There you go. More
Awesome.
Halloween candy for you.
Yay. Cavities. All right. Let's go. Murder.
Thank you for listening to Healthcare Horrors, brought to you by Atlas MedStaff. Just a reminder, we are not healthcare professionals. We are just fans of true crime, talking about some of history's darkest moments in healthcare. Stay tuned, stay healthy, and stay safe.